We all remember Jay's tragic death at the Battle of the Gullet. It was a brutal, devastating loss in the Dance of the Dragons. He was the dutiful son, the heir to the Iron Throne, the future of the Black's cause. Struck down right in his prime, we mourned him as casualty of a war. Another good man lost to the ambitions of his family. But what if I told you it wasn't just a bad luck? What if it wasn't a random volley of a crossbow bolts that sealed his fate? What if Chase was a marked man from the moment he was born? Fans of the series have long pointed to a dark pattern, what you might call a narrative curse, that has claimed others just like him for centuries. When you look closer, Jacaerys Velarion's death starts to feel less like an accident and more like an appointment. Today we are going to unravel the evidence suggesting Jay's fate was sealed by two converging forces, a grim narrative pattern that seems to target Targaryen heirs with dark hair, and his own desperate, all-consumed need to prove his Targaryen blood. His end wasn't just a random tragedy, it was the collision of his world's prejudice and his own psychology. To understand why Jay's story might have been doomed from the start, we first need to look at this dark and often overlooked pattern in Targaryen history. It's not a magical spell, but a cold recurring theme that fans have picked up on. When you think Targaryen, you get a very specific image: silver gold hair and, in the books, purple eyes. This look is their brand, the visual proof of their pure Valyrian blood. But over the dynasty's 300 years in history, there have been exceptions. Targaryens born with dark hair usually because of a marriage to someone from another house, a Martell, a Blackwood, or in Jay's case, a Strong. And this is where the pattern emerges. It seems like almost every time a Targaryen in the direct line of succession is born with non-Valyrian features, they either die prematurely, get passed over for the throne, or suffer a uniquely tragic fate. This feels like more than a coincidence. It's a recurring narrative idea. Think about it. The concept of the seed is strong was one of the first big mysteries in Game of Thrones. It's the clue that led Ned Stark to realize Joffrey wasn't Robert's son because Baratheon black hair was a dominant trait. In Targaryen story, this idea is flipped. Silver hair is the mark of legitimacy, and anything else can be seen as a sign of dilution, weakness, or worse, bastardy. Let's look at the examples. The list of unlucky dark-haired Targaryens is grim. Take Baelor Breakspear. We met him in A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, son of King Daeron II and Dornish princess. He had the dark hair of his mother. He was hailed as the perfect prince, the future of the realm, the man who embodied the kingdom's hope. And we watched him die in the Trial of Seven, his skull crushed by his own brother, Maker's mace. An accident, but one that broke the realm in half. The show gave us the visual, the books give us the aftermath that the screen hasn't touched yet. His son, who also carried that Dornish look, both died during the Great Spring sickness. Before either could inherit, the dark-haired heir line gone. Just like that. Then there's Rhaenys, the queen who never was. We knew her well from the House of the Dragon. In George R.R. Martin's text, she carried the black Baratheon hair of her mother, marking her distinct lineage. She was denied the throne by her great council and later burned alive at Rook's Rest. In the dance, while the show gave her silver hair to simplify the visuals, her book counterpart laid the foundation for the curse. From the books, there's also a Prince Duncan the Small, heir to the Aegon V, dark-haired. He fell in love with the commoner Jenny of Oldstone, gave up his claim to the Iron Throne for her, and died in the mysterious and horrific tragedy at Summerhall. The story hasn't been dramatized on screen, but George R.R. Martin's text is unambiguous about what happened to him. The narrative message seems clear. This world isn't kind to dark-haired Targaryens. From the storytelling perspective, they often feel like a loose ends that need to be tied up. And that brings us to Jacaerys Velaryon. Chase isn't just another victim of this pattern, he's the perfect embodiment of it. He has the physical marker, the thick dark brown hair of his true father, Harwin Strong, and he lives under the constant shadow of his rumored illegitimacy. By every observable feature, he was a Strong, not a Velaryon, and certainly not a Targaryen in appearance. In the unforgiving logic of this world that made him an impostor in the eyes of many, his death in narrative sentence almost becomes a grim correction of the bloodline, removing the impure heir. But a narrative pattern needs a trigger. For Jace, that trigger wasn't some external force. It was internal. It was his own crushing insecurity and the desperate things he did to silence it from the moment he was old enough to understand the whispers. In the Red Keep, Jace lived with a wound that could never heal. He was the Prince of Dragonstone, heir to the Iron Throne, yet he was constantly followed by a shadow of doubt. In the show, we see him ask his mother the heartbreaking question that defined his life: Am I a bastard? Rhaenyra's answer, You are a Targaryen, that's all that matters, was meant to soothe him, but it only highlights the central conflict of his life. He had to be a Targaryen, because if he wasn't, he was nothing. This opened a wound in Jace that influenced every choice he made. He couldn't afford a single mistake. In one powerful scene, we see him furious with himself for messing up a phrase in High Valyrian. It's not just a kid frustrated with homework. It's a boy who believes every slip-up is more evidence for the case against him. He knew his right to a Valyrian name was questioned, so he had to be more Valyrian, more Targaryen than anyone. And what's the one thing that can prove a brown-haired boy is a true Targaryen? His dragon. Vermix wasn't just a mount or a weapon for Jace. Vermix was his validation. Vermix was the living, breathing, fire-breathing proof of his Targaryen blood. The fact that a dragon accepted him was the only argument he had, that no one could tear down. And because his dragon was his only real claim to legitimacy in the eyes of his doubters, he became pathologically reliant on it, not just for travel, but for his very identity. This deep need for validation led him to a pattern of a reckless overcompensation. He constantly had to prove he was brave enough, strong enough, and worthy enough to be Rhaenyra's heir. We see this in his travel. At the Wall, Cregan Stark gives him a friendly but firm warning, a story about the limits of the dragons, reminding they aren't invincible. Jace listens, but doesn't really hear it. Then his own betrothed, Baela, a dragon rider herself, confronts him about his recklessness and advises caution. He dismisses her concerns too. Even his mother, Rhaenyra, accidentally fuels this fatal flaw. She points out that Vermix is still young and not seasoned war dragon, yet she constantly rewards Jace's aggressive, risky behavior because it looks like strength. When he returns from his mission, she tells him, I'm proud of you. She praised the very behavior that was leading him straight into the danger. Every risk he took, every warning he ignored was another step toward the gullet. He was so focused on proving he was a true dragon, he forgot that even dragons can fall from the sky. This brings us to the battle itself. The Battle of the Gullet wasn't just a random naval fight, it was the perfect storm, a situation that preyed on Jace's exact vulnerability. It was where the historical pattern and his personal psychology were destined to violently collide, and the show gave us one crucial piece of setup that the books never did. Before the battle even begins, Jace makes a decision that seals his fate. Before he ever climbs onto Vermix, word reaches Dragonstone that Triarchy fleet is attacking in the Gullet. Rhaenyra immediately moves to suit up. She's going to fly into the battle herself, and Jace stops her. He orders Sir Loren to lock his mother in her room. Think about that. The heir locks the queen in her chambers, turns to Baela and says 3 words, come with me. This is Jace at his most decisive and most desperate. He can't let his mother fight because if she dies, the cause dies with her. But if he leads the charge himself, if he wins the battle his mother couldn't fight, that proves everything. That proves he is the heir she raised, the dragon rider the realm should fear, the Targaryen no one can question. He doesn't just fly into the Gullet. He flies into the one situation where restraint would have saved him. And Triarchy was ready. These weren't some Westerosi lords who saw dragons with simple awe and terror. The man of the Triarchy was seasoned warrior. They had fought against Daemon Targaryen and Corlys Velaryon in the Stepstones. They knew how to kill dragons. Corlys' plan was to lure the Triarchy commander, Sharako Lohar, into a narrow rocky passage, while Jace and Baela burned the fleet from above. But Lohar was crafty. Her ships were armed, massive weighted spears, grapnel-like weapons designed for exactly this purpose. Vermix flies low over the enemy ships, too low. A spear flies upward and catches him. The dragon, snared, screaming, dragged toward the sea. Baela drives in on Moon Dancer and cuts the rope. She frees him. For a moment, it looks like they might have survived this. But they don't pull back. They don't retreat. Jace keeps fighting, and then Rhaena arrives on Sheep Stealer. A wild dragon, no saddle, no training, just a girl holding on for her life. In the chaos of battle, Vermix turned towards Sheep Stealer, ready to flame. Jace realizes what's happening just in time and stops his dragon from killing Rhaena. But that moment of hesitation, that human instinct to protect someone he knows, puts him right back in the kill zone. A second spear hits Vermix. This time there's no rescue. The dragon crashes into the sea, wounded beyond recovery, dragging himself under. Jace is thrown into the water. He clings to a piece of wreckage, a prince without a dragon, a boy alone in the narrow sea. The Triarchy sailors spot him, and then the arrows come. 1, 2, 3. He sinks beneath the waves. His death is brutal, merciless, and personal. He wasn't just a casualty. He was the heir to the Iron Throne, and Triarchy knew exactly what they were killing. The show's version of his death is devastating precisely because of who Jace was in that moment. He wasn't the cold tactician. He was a boy who locked his mother away to protect her, flew into a war he wasn't ready for, stopped his dragon from burning a friend, and paid for every one of those choices with his life. In the books, there's an additional layer. The ship carrying his youngest half-brothers, Aegon the Younger and Viserys, is seized by Triarchy. Aegon escapes on his tiny dragon, Stormcloud. Viserys is captured. Jace flies into the battle partly to save them. The show streamlined those characters who were absent from the premiere, but the core motivation remains the same. Book or screen, Jace's death is the collision of his love for his family and his need to prove his worth. His need to prove his Targaryen courage, a courage he felt was always being questioned because of his strong looks, is what made him fly low. The narrative pattern marked him for tragedy, but it was his own heroic, desperate character that made him deliver himself to the executioner. So, was Jaehaerys Velarion's death just a random tragedy of war? I don't think so. His fate was a perfect, devastating storm created by two powerful forces. First, there was the bigger picture, the relentless narrative pattern that fans called the dark-haired Targaryen curse. Time and again, the story of Westeros has shown us on screen and on the page that those who carry the Targaryen name but not the Targaryen look seem destined for tragedy. Their appearance marks them as outsiders, and the story has a brutal way of removing them from the line of succession. Jace, rumored to be a bastard with the face of Harwin Strong, was the poster child for this theme. But a theme is just an idea. What made it real was Jace's own tragic humanity. His entire life was a fight against the shadow of his illegitimacy. His dragon Vermix became the one and only symbol of his worth, the one thing that proved he belonged. This deep-seated insecurity drove him to be reckless, to ignore warning, to lock his mother in a room and fly into a battle. He was never going to win, and when Rhaena appeared in the chaos, he hesitated because he wasn't a monster. He was a boy trying to be a hero. The dark-haired pattern provided the narrative destiny, but Jace's own choices, driven by a lifetime of doubt, provided the path. He didn't just die because he was a dark-haired claimant. He died because he was trying with every fiber of his being not to be seen as one. His desperate need to prove he was a dragon led him to fly too close to the sun, or in this case, too low to the sea. And that is what makes his end maybe the most poignant and richest example of this tragic pattern in the entire franchise. It wasn't just a fate, it was a choice, born of tragedy that led to an even greater one. What do you think? Was Jace's fate sealed from the beginning, or could he have escaped this pattern if he had made different choices? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of Westeros.